So, alleged racism fallout between Eskom CEO André Ruyter and former procurement boss Solly Tshitangano is a mirror image of what happens in many offices around the country. This is according to Economist Xhanti Payi. Ruyter has since been cleared of any racism, while Tshitangano got the boot from the power utility. So let's now bring in Xhanti Payi so we can address this issue of, I suppose, using quote-unquote the race card, because Xhanti makes an argument that the mistake we make is use the Eskom example and think that it's a norm for black employees to use racism accusations mischievously. Xhanti, thank you so much for making time. So News 24 journalist and editor Peter du Toit wrote an opinion piece titled "The Scandalizing of Ruyter and How the Race Card Has Become the South African Way." And he argues in that article that there is a tendency to make allegations of racism flippantly, too quickly, and take on board without any price. Your argument is his views border on generalization.
Look, I mean, I think it's much worse than that. Thank you very much, Clement, for having me, and good afternoon to your viewers. Look, it's much worse than actually he's generalizing. Actually, he is perpetuating the very racism that many people actually go out there and cry about. Now, I looked at the board's response or their press statement, and certainly one of the things that is important is actually how one actually even thinks about what racism looks like to somebody who actually feels that they are undone or they have been treated in a way because they are black, or that the other person is actually taking power that is allotted to them because they are white. And those are the levels of racism that we think about. Racism is not the sort of thing that people say, look, we did an investigation of whether or not, I mean, as I read that press statement, it really made me cringe because I think if you really look into the different, the research into the work environment, that press statement and actually the investigators' comments speak exactly to this, that, black people are weak, that they actually fall behind their incompetence, that they run away from accountability because they are weak, and that this guy who is powerful and who's doing his job and he's actually forcing them to do the right thing is the one that's right. And I think that's really, really problematic. That's actually even besides the point of whether or not Mr. Ruyter is in fact a racist or he is actually racist. It is actually even in the handling of that. What kind of inquiry do you actually undertake to determine whether or not somebody who says, I feel that I've been treated in this way, I feel that my boss is more powerful than me, actually has treated me this way, that you undertake to actually determine that? I think it's really, really actually, it's a shame that this has come to this.
What's the determining factor? I hear you. What impact do you think these kind of views around the race card being used to hide incompetence and wrongdoing has on black people's experiences? Does it delegitimize their lived experiences? Because I imagine that's where gaslighting comes in.
Absolutely, and I think you listen to the board statement. The board is actually, in the statement, in the report, or at least as it is quoted in News 24, it really goes very deep into this idea that even this board is so weak that actually they ran to the first thing that they had to do is to investigate this because they don't. And so you can hear in their statement that they're apologizing. They're striving now to be stern because how could they be so weak as to actually follow a racism trail? And I think workplaces are actually like that because people who actually, whether they're sexually harassed, I mean, we would never use the word race card or sexual harassment card. These are the kinds of things that have been happening to people who are actually weaker in the work environment against those who are powerful. Where you say, for example, if somebody was visited upon where they complain about sexual harassment, that I'm treated this way because my boss wanted to sleep with me and I said no, and then people say, well, she's pulling the sexual harassment card, or I said I've been raped, and somebody says they're pulling the rape card. We would never say those kinds of things because we know that that's not the way power works. And certainly in workplaces, we've got to be very careful because we are trying very hard to open up the space for people to be much more productive, to speak openly, to say the kinds of things that they have to say in order for them to be productive and that actually our workspaces are healthy. So, I mean, a lot of the work that we've been doing is exactly on this, on unemployment, on the workplace, and what's the nature and causes of why certain people don't ascend into powerful positions at work, why certain people are not as productive, why certain people are not actually feeling comfortable to be able to actually express themselves, why diversity is failing. And so if we use the kind of language that has been used in this case, in which actually even the investigation, I would have imagined that if you are looking at an investigation of somebody who says, I've been treated badly, that person, you would have to go and look at the person's history in terms of what they do in work. Are they a person of honesty? Are they a person of hard work? Are they a person of integrity? And therefore, would they cry foul? And actually what will happen today is the complete opposite. They went and actually affirmed the work of what would have been the perpetrator. So, for example, if somebody says, I've been raped or I've been sexually harassed, somebody would have to go and say, let's go and look at the character of the rapist, of the harasser. That is not the way in which we do these kinds of things. And I think this is the shame about it. Now, I am not accusing Mr. Ruyter of racism. I'm certainly, I think that anybody is capable of actually having committed, crime wolf. Those things do happen. But if we are going to use the generalization that has been used here and the kind of language that has been used by the investigator, which is I find his particular language very shameful. He really goes in for people who are actually says we are weak. How can we not have found the strength over all these years to be able to stand up for ourselves? That sort of thing is not acceptable.
What lessons can we learn? What can we take from this? What is it that employers can do to create workspaces that show equality, fairness, and the interest in the success of all employees?
Look, I think open environments are very, very important. And I think also power dynamics. So, for example, it is really, again, one of the things that do happen in terms of workplaces where there's abuse, workplaces where there are power dynamics, even in our economy, right? There are those people who are bigger than others. And it's always because you affirm some and you actually, let others fall by the wayside. So I think that the board is quite correct, and so has the president, to try and affirm the CEO, because you want to say, I hired this guy and I trust him to do the right job. But at the same time, there is a level of affirmation that actually creates bullies in the workplace, the level of affirmation that creates the kind of, statuses of certain people untouchable because they are doing an important job, everybody else is attacking them. You don't want to do that because, again, it is now actually where maybe other people there is a power dynamic in which now this CEO is now untouchable. And workplaces should be places of openness where people feel that they can complain, people feel that they can express themselves, people feel that they can, in any way, whether or not they are being abused or that actually they've got an idea that they can share that's good, that they can take the platform, to venture into new ideas, into new innovation. And if they are actually the powerful forces of certain people whose position it is, that actually they have a superior position in which they are here to do a particular job and everybody else must fall in line, that becomes problematic because then we are only a one-sided or one-track kind of society, or even, we are, of course, being shocked by corruption, but it is not to say that everything we do must be measured against corruption, or that must be measured certainly against race. But certainly we can't have a situation as we are having now in which everything has been defined. I think I feel sorry for the board because they've been so shell-shocked about this thing that they felt they would go on the extreme position in which basically they are calling out racism rather than all the issues that the manager should be doing. I think it's about actually keeping an open environment and where everybody is of equal worth and of equal value, and none are actually taken more seriously or more importantly just on the basis that they are doing a particularly important job than other people.